I go home.
Hi, everybody. Chad Westport here, and I'm back with another episode of Just One Thing, where we get experienced growers from the community to help new growers with just one thing that they think is very important for everybody to know. And tonight, we've got an excellent person with us. Not only do they have medicinal home cultivation experience, but they have commercial experience. And this plays into all things about the subject that they're going to talk about. So please, without further ado, what is your just one thing that you think all new growers need to know about?
Man, for now, I have a lot on my Instagram, Spartan Grown on Instagram. I get a lot of questions from growers, and the one that I see a lot, or the one that I notice and it's one of the hardest ones to kind of describe, is just watering. When do I water? How do I water? How often do I water? There's a lot of things when it comes to watering, and people think that's just a simple thing, and they take it for granted and don't ask questions, and then they get into trouble. So, just from the beginning, I love to break down the thought process, why and how, because then everybody can apply that. If they know how or why, they can apply that in many different situations. My thought process on it is, and what I do that helps me is, first, before I even do anything, is I just look at the plant. And you can Google images all day long and look at what an underwatered plant looks like. And it's, generally speaking, the big fan leaves tend to drop down. They tend to droop as they need more and more water, because it's kind of water pressure that holds them up. And so if you're looking at the plant, when you at first look and the plant's got droopy leaves, it could be two things. It could be over or under watering, but at least it can be step one. There's something going on. I have to either water this or it's overwatered. And you can find out the answer to that question really easy by just picking up the pot. I would suggest, if you're a very new grower and you don't know what a fully saturated pot feels like, the first time you do water, pick that pot up so you have an idea of what a heavy pot or just watered pot feels like. Because if you reach down, you pick up a pot at any time and it's that heavy or close to it, I don't need to water it again. It's obviously got water in it. Even big plants, when they have an empty root or a dry root ball, they're super light. So the weight test has always been my favorite. But a couple other things I look at as I'm approaching the plant is I look at the media, the surface of the dirt, soil, cocoa, whatever you're growing in. And usually if it's wet and dry, they're generally two different colors. So that's another clue. If I see that it's dry on the surface, it doesn't mean the whole thing needs water. It might just, the surface might be dry, and that's why you always check the weight. But it gives you clues. Another thing to think of is, did I water this plant yesterday? If I watered it yesterday and I go in today and it's bone dry, that gives me valuable information. Because I watered it yesterday, but it's dry today. That means I watered it too little yesterday. I didn't give it enough water volume. So I'll know that would be a clue for me that, okay, say, for example, I watered a quart or I watered 1,000 milliliters. You'll know that, okay, this time today, I'm going to water it a little bit more because it was so dry today and wilting when I came in, and whatever I gave it yesterday wasn't enough. So I got to give it more today. So that's another little step to dial in the volume of water. I like using the little measuring scoops you get at the grocery store that are all different sizes. So it starts with they're in milliliters. So 250, I have a 250, a 500, a 1,000 scoop, and a 2,000 scoop. And so I can tell you the milliliters, how I water. So like in a 1 gallon pot, when I take a clone cutting, put it into a 1 gallon pot, I give it 200. Well, the very first time, like I just put new cocoa in, I'm going to give that first watering 500 milliliters of water. That's generally more than what I would give a clone. But if it's in a already moist and it's not coming out of a bag dry, then I'll give it 250. And all the waterings after that first watering, they'll get 250 generally. Look at the size of the plant as compared to the size of the pot that it's in. If you're got a small plant in a large pot, you're gonna know that you have to be very careful watering that, because it's super easy to water all that media and there's no roots in that media yet. So it's going to sit for days and days before it gets dry again. But if you're in the vice versa, if you've got a gigantic 4-foot tall plant in like a 1-gallon pot, you're going to know that it doesn't matter how much water I put in that thing. I can only get so much water in a little 1-gallon pot, and it's going to need to be watered more than once a day because that root zone is already filled, or I can transplant, or I'll know, okay, I'm watering it once a day and can't put any more water in, and this plant is still wilting, then I know transplant time into a bigger pot. It's really important the media that you're growing in. Just the two major soil cocoa differences.
Yes.
A major or just a real general overview rule, Spartan rule on watering will say is if you're on the fence, I don't know if I should water this or not. It's kind of close. It's on the edge. If you're in cocoa, water that shit. If you're in soil, don't. Give it another day. And the reason I say that is just the properties of that media. Cocoa, it's extremely hard to overwater. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I'm going to say it's extremely hard to overwater. So you can go ahead and water it if you're questionable on it. But on the soil side of things, it's extremely easy to overwater soil. So if you put too much water into the root zone, there's not enough aeration, you're going to start killing roots. That doesn't happen in cocoa because it retains more water or retains more oxygen when fully watered, but soil is not that way. So that's just the little bit overview. But generally speaking, the volume of water, I'm not saying like the frequency, how often you water, but I'm saying how much water is in that pitcher every time you're watering. The volume of water is going to be less on soil than what you would use in cocoa. And you're going to have runoff in cocoa synthetically, whereas you're not going to have that in soil. So there's little caveats, and it's important to know, like, okay, what media am I in? To know that. I think on a general idea, it's not a good sign to see your plants. Get your plants to the point to where they're physically wilting all the way down. Their leaves are all the way down. If they're just starting to come down a little bit, that's fine. But all the way down, that's stress, and it's generally not a good thing.
That's awesome, Spartan. Thank you. And thank you for drawing that distinction too between cocoa and soil, because I think those are the two medias that most new growers are going to start with. And yeah, it sounds like cocoa, at least from the watering aspect, may be a little more forgiving or a little bit easier to dial in. But soil, if 10 was super difficult, 1 was completely easy. Where do you think the soil ranks on the watering scale?
Well, I'll give you a little pro tip here, or what I call it a pro tip is sub-irrigated planters, S.I.P containers. If you combine a sub-irrigated planter with soil, it's easy mode watering. It's the easiest watering I've ever done in my entire life. Yeah. And all of those things I listed, they're all like clues to give you the answer on, is it overwatered, is it underwatered, or is it just perfect? So you're making that determination by looking at all these things. You're looking at the leaves. Are they standing up? Or are they hanging down? You're looking at the surface of the soil. Is it, dark? Is it light colored? You're thinking in your head, did I water this yesterday? Or I haven't watered this thing for 4 days. This thing should be dry. All of those kinds of information figure in to give you an idea of what's going on. So you can catch problems and get the right answer quickly.
Thank you so much for expanding on that and giving people some true wisdom from experience of the cheat codes almost to kind of how to do this. Only the things that you learn with experience. So I appreciate you coming on here and doing that today with us, Spartan Grown.
As easy as watering sounds, it's a tough topic that a lot of people struggle with. So I'm thanking you for letting me get this out there in front of more people so that we can help people grow, man, because that's like I always say, keep growing.
So I want to let people know where they can find you. And again, everybody, these will be in the show notes. But on Instagram, you're at Spartan Grown, and they can officially get to you as well. SpartanGrown@gmail.com. Yes. One of the few awesome people that is always there to answer questions. So again, thank you for giving us your just one thing, and party on.
Party on.